Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nancy. And it's so great to be here with everybody today to talk about one of our favorite programs, the Graduate Certificate in Sustainable Community Development. So we'll start with an acknowledgement of the lands that Royal Roads is on, and it's situated on traditional and unceded lands of Lekwungen speaking peoples, the Kasapsum and the Lekwungen ancestors and families, which includes Sook and Beecher Bay. And we're grateful that we can carry forth the lineage of gathering together on these beautiful lands where we cultivate deep roots and rich relationships of reciprocity and increase connectedness with humans and the rest of the living world. We really celebrate an education that recognizes we're all part of an intelligent, alive, whole Earth system, and we treat knowledge as a living presence. We're deeply grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. And I'll just move on to the next slide here. So just to make sure that everybody's in the good room, we're here to talk about the Graduate Certificate in Sustainable Community Development. And I'm pleased to be with Hilary Leighton and Dr. Dale, two wonderful professors. They know so much about the program. They know so much about life in general. So I'm very pleased to be here and hear more about the program. And I'll be jumping back at the end just to answer some questions and talk more about the application process. So the agenda for today, we get to know each other. I see many people introducing themselves in the chat. That's wonderful. We'll give you a brief overview of Royal Roads University. We'll give you some information about the program. We'll talk about the process, and we'll take your question throughout the session. And we like to say that we really want this to be a conversation. So anything you hear or you want to let us know, please do, so we can answer as we go.
I just want to say, Nance, just back to that picture. That's a beautiful picture I took on Salt Spring. So very close to our ecosystem here. It isn't Royal Roads necessarily, but I just love it. It sure is evocative of the terrain that we're on here. The power of land.
Yeah, I really love that. And I'm super pleased to see the sun today as well. For those of us who are in Victoria, that feels pretty good to see the garden growing and everything. Yeah.
And when we're talking about the power of place, when we developed and designed this certificate, Anne and I, a number of years ago, we speak about place and people as not separate. You know, this is how we designed this whole certificate, to have this kind of indissoluble unity between people and places, and you know, the more than human world and how we live. So there's great learning directed around not just how to improve cities or how to improve our communities, but how to build a deeper intimacy and better relationships with all of the living world, including humans. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I think we're going to talk a little bit, aren't you going to talk a bit about Royal Roads? Yeah.
Yes, perfect. So here on your top left, and maybe we can use the reaction button now to just maybe give me a thumbs up if you have been to Royal Roads before. I see that some are colleagues of mine here in the room, but maybe some people have come on campus just to walk or see the lagoon. So on the top left, you have Hatley Castle, of course. This is one of the iconic building we have on campus, built in 1908 as a retirement house for the Dunsmuir family. On the top right, you can see the Japanese garden. We have lovely gardens on site. We hope that you can come and visit. And when you will come for your residency, maybe you'll have a chance to walk around all those gardens, the Japanese one, Italian, we have a rose garden, we have a food garden coming up too. On the top bottom left, I should say, the Esquimalt Lagoon is where you can go have a walk, just do your homework by the lagoon. It's a bird sanctuary, very lovely, and the university faces the lagoon. And on the bottom right is just a reminder that Royal Road has been teaching online for 25 years. So this is not something that is new for us. We have been doing here for more than 25 years. Mm-hmm. Would you like to add anything, Hilary or Anne?
I think Royal Roads and it's not just because I'm a professor there, it has some of the most magical lands in the country. It is a beautiful, beautiful landscape to be able to, you know, think and research and reflect. And we hope you will come and visit us on one of the most, I think, magical campuses in the country, Hilary. I don't know if you feel that way.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely do, Anne. I mean, the land is as much, instructs as much as any curriculum when you're there. It really is a beautiful, beautiful scene. So, and it's so diverse. But I love that also this slide shows the online learning, because, this blended program allows people to do this program. You don't have to be here for the whole thing, but when you are here, that is really the crucible of the learning. It's really something.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next slide, Nance. There we go. Okay, so this is a question we hear all the time. Why should I take this program? Well, right now, just given the context that we're in with we'll call it the long emergency, the long climate emergency that we're in, that it really faces everyone, and there's not one of us immune from this. The world needs people to be active, to be actively participating in the changes that are required for us to move through to a more regenerative, sustainable culture, communities, cities. The ways that we educate and think and act and behave. And so, we're all called right now. It's a very difficult time, and yet some of us feel very called to this time, that we're doing what we should be doing in this moment. And if you feel like you're not quite doing that, and you need some more skills and competencies and confidence, well, this is the place to build it, because this is a very applied program. It's a place to practice and to develop networks, and to really, it's a place to hone your leadership skills, because you're really doing active real world research. And there's got to be a better way we can all live together. We all know this. So we believe education is one of those transformative portals to making the kinds of change, to helping you make those kinds of changes. And this program doesn't transform people. You transform yourself by virtue of your participation. And we really think that starting with working with local municipalities is an excellent way to really hone your skills and to really see what's going on. While it might be a microcosm here, it usually is pretty redolent of what else is going on in the country and in the world. And we're tasked with building a plan to make that happen. If you've been tasked with building cities or planning cities, or thinking deeply about communities, then this is the place where you can come in and do some more of that deep dive. Anne, would you like to say something?
Yeah, and besides which, local communities are on the front line of dealing with the climate crisis and biodiversity conservation. Totally. And so how to plan and act in your community so that it's more sustainable, this certificate is your ticket. Yeah,
it sure is. And it's, it's not easy. I just want to say that up front. We've heard from students, it really tasked them to bring the best of themselves and to really dig in. And it was unlike other programs they'd been to. And we take that as a great boon. Okay, so let's go on to the program structure. So our delivery model is blended. That's what we call our combination of online and on campus. We have 2 online courses in this 3-course certificate. The first course is online. The middle course is a residency on campus, a short week-long residency, and the 3rd course is also online. Thanks, Nance. The next slide, please. Yeah. Oh, we got the bees in there. That's great. We just recently had a campus conversation with our colleagues around regenerative sustainability. And we had many of our colleagues bring in these beautiful slides. So we borrowed them today for some of our slides too. I just want to say something about Ann Dale here for a moment. And so Ann's going to, push me away, I'm pretty sure, on this, but I do want to say that when I was tasked with reimagining this certificate a number of years ago, I couldn't think of anybody better to be with me, alongside me, to accompany me, because of the many books, the many peer-reviewed journals and chapters, the leadership at organizations that are both scholarly and in the public sector. Anne has been on the front lines of sustainable community development and writing about it profoundly. I'm thinking of Community Vitality, one of my favorite books on this subject. And Anne has the background and experience and the art to decipher the kind of critical importance of sustainable community development now, in this time in our history. And so I'm so grateful that you're here, Anne, and that you'll be part of this program too, in terms of guest lecturing and helping us design and plan. And so I'm so glad you're here today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Leighton, but I also have to add that Hilary is one of the foremost educators I've had the privilege of working with, as well as her knowledge in the field. And she has taught me an awful lot about, both the physical, place-based classroom and making it hospitable, as well as just the knowledge. It's far more than all of that. And that's what I really love about the certificate, is its emphasis on place-based learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, even if we move into this slide, what differentiates this certificate? I remember when we were working with the city of Victoria for a couple of years there, Anne, on their messy, wicked problems. And our students were really happily surprised that part of the curriculum was to actually go out and walk the city streets, to really notice what was going on. It wasn't just some theoretical case study. We were actually in the city at City Studio, walking around, reflecting, writing, digesting, metabolizing, noticing things they might not have noticed, and then bringing that back to form some of their ideation around some of the changes they wanted to make recommendations of. And that just wasn't usually something that was built into the curriculum. It's usually go and walk on your lunch or journal on your lunch, but we actually purposely design it in the curriculum so that it's valued. Many ways of coming to knowledge are valued. And we also borrow from art and architecture in this program to find other ways of looking at problems, because the initial problem isn't necessarily the thing in the end. When we get ourselves all together and we start asking some of the unusual suspects, what might be going on, and the end users, what's going on. So what do you think differentiates this certificate the most, Anne? What would you say?
Well, I think that, first of all, the first session, and I hope I don't sound arrogant, the first session you will be experiencing is one of the most extensive literature reviews and discussions on the meaning of sustainable community development. And we've had a number of our graduates go on to get employment, actually, right after completing the certificate in the field. So that's number one. It's as rich, the first session of the certificate, as some of the master's courses in our environmental management program. And then the design, I think, of the certificate, of the 8-day residency is really innovative, designed to get you to really understand the importance of place and how to evaluate. But this year we're adding all the access to all the wonderful tools that there are out there that will allow you to be able to assess a community's sustainability. And then I love the third part as well, because it's based on an action plan. Mm-hmm. And we were kicking ideas back and forth the other day, and we said that part of that action plan should be, you have to identify who the most important group to communicate your plan to. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily the municipal council, but where are you going to get the most meaningful change? And I think one of my heroes, Greta Thunberg, says it so succinctly: you get hope through acting.
Yeah. Yeah, hope is active. It's a verb. It's definitely a roll up your sleeves verb. I love that, Anne. Yeah, I think it's the third work we're talking about, that yes, we'll of course report back to municipalities that we're in partnership with and neighborhoods and others that are involved. It's not just the either or. We're really interested in getting right to the heart of change here. We selected this lighting the fire because we really think that this certificate does light a fire of enthusiasm under people to, act and to make recommendations and to dig in, but also it helps light some of those fires in community that, need to be, stoked a little bit to make those kinds of changes. And especially when it comes from students who come in and really apply themselves and throw themselves into the residency. It's really quite stunning. Those 8 days are very fast paced and very rich. So yeah, let's go to the next slide, Nance. Let's see. I think it's yep. Right. So what are the most pressing issues that cities and citizens face? Anne, would you like to say something?
Can I jump in here, Hilary? Yeah. I'm going to be very provocative, and I hope I don't insult anybody. But I think one of the most pressing issues facing us is that in my 21 years of research in sustainable community development, I only know of one exception where the developers haven't won everything that they wanted over the long term.
Yeah.
And that's the new library design here in Ottawa. And so that just fires me up. We have a number of issues all across the country, campaigns that communities have been involved in. So that's why it's really, really important to figure out what tools and ways we can develop and make better our campaigns to improve the sustainability of our communities. But the most pressing question to me is, why don't the developers listen to the community? Because ultimately they come up with a better project that is accepted by the community and is embedded in the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm totally with you, Anne. I think we see this all the time, and it usually throws back to the economics of things, or we're told that's the issue. Whereas we are so slow to adapt the triadic notion of social, economic, and ecological considerations before we ever do anything. Because of course, we're part of the ecology. We've just kept ourselves so separate from it and think we can just carry on, but at our own peril. We've seen how this plays out. Would you mind going to the next slide, Nance? Because I think this is really, so this, yes, what critical sustainable skills do we need to address these problems? It's the next slide I want to bring up, which is Anne's slide. And this comes from your book, Community Vitality. And it's a take on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? It's a kind of a flip. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I did, if you will notice, so Maslow's original hierarchy of needs was basically on the psychological and the social. So if you look at the first item, so I've adapted it to integrate ecological and social sustainability and imperatives into it. So if you look at the first one, clean air, water, and land. I mean, that's fundamental to human vitality in all life, is it not? Mm-hmm. Access to housing. And actually, this was done quite, I guess, over a decade ago. I would put access to affordable housing, mm-hmm. freedom from violence, mm-hmm. guaranteed annual income. And then you can see the things that I've added throughout his scale.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think what's really critically important is that, not to make a hierarchy a bad thing. Nature contains hierarchies as well, but to flip it. What if kindness and compassion and connection and sharing of knowledge and experience and love, love of our earth, love of our fellow humans and the rest of the living world. What if that was the reconciliatory way that we were building more livable cities? What if peace was foundational to that? What if we flipped it and said, these are the paramount issues? that must be in place in order for us to say, okay, well then, then we're doing this right, we're doing this well.
Yes, and what this is not cast in stone. It was designed as well to stimulate conversation.
Mhm.
Like maybe you need peace as a basic need or governance. And because that's what's missing, I think now is conversations in our communities about what are the ways to become more sustainable? What are our existing assets? Do an asset map, for example, of all your existing assets. Map your wetlands so that when a developer comes in, you've got a map of what your wetlands are and you're not reacting. You're proactive and you've
You're
got your
responding.
information.
Yeah, but you also have a
Yes.
historical record, which if something disappears, it's gone. Well, I also love this idea from an empowerment level, because while the students are finding some empowerment by working on real world issues, this year when we're thinking of doing neighborhood audits with our students, and we're just working on this, finalizing this with one of our local municipalities, just imagine how it might feel for those folks in those neighborhoods who feel that there's something they can do in response to heat domes and, atmospheric rivers and all of the things that are starting to happen in our lives, rather than just sit in fear and paralysis and denial or worry, anxiety, but to actually be active, to be doing something together, to be learning together. And I think that's really critical for those conversations you're talking about, Anne, at the community level. Yeah. And what do
I go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just trying to read the chat too. This is great. I'm just looking at the fellow from Perth. Yep. Why don't they listen? This talking about developers. Yep. Yep. Anyway, sorry. I just like to look at the chat too.
Yeah, that is the question, why they don't listen, because the product is ultimately improved. Like we all know as educators that, and this may be surprising to some, the team always outperforms the individual, no matter how brilliant the individual is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So collective decision-making and participatory decision-making is fundamental to sustainable communities.
Yeah, and that's kind of a radical thing, that kind of collaboration you're talking about, because usually things have been hived off into silos, and what happens is they can be well-intentioned enough, but they're siloed. They're only partial information. Well, this year, what we're hoping to do, working with a local municipality, is also work with developers. So it's developers, the city, and the neighborhoods. So we think that's kind of a nice turn to see what kinds of conversations we can have there. So maybe the next slide, Nancy, thanks. And okay, so that's a great shot. I'd like to be standing up there. Thank you for that. So we'll do a program overview. We've kind of touched on it, Anne and I. That there's 2 courses paired with the residency, and it's 9 credits altogether with the 3 courses. And we do have really great laddering options too. You can take the 9 credits and ladder into the MA in interdisciplinary studies. And Anne and I found that at one point, 50% of our students who were graduating the certificate were deciding to go on and do the MA interdisciplinary. Isn't that right, Anne? It was about 50% of our students those 2 years that flipped over. Yeah, they got a taste of it. And also now, recently in the MA in environmental practice, you can transfer 9 credits over as well and still get recognized for the graduate certificate. You can transfer 3 credits to the MBA, the MSc MA in environmental management, or MSc at Royal Roads, and the MA in climate action leadership. We're just confirming that, but I think that's part of their electives too. So yeah, that's pretty great, because it could be something you do after you've done your graduate work, postgraduate, but it also could be something that starts to ladder into something else that you're going to start looking forward, start applying this more and take the full MA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in other words, it can open doors. Somebody
Totally.
might really get passionate about planning, for example, and take a planning certificate from the Canadian Institute of Planners.
Right, exactly. Yeah, or go off and do a leadership MA, or, you know, something in project management, or, yeah, I agree. There's all kinds of different routes to take. The interdisciplinary MA also allows people to really branch out. And yeah, we've met a lot of people who went through that route too, and that's wonderful that we followed them along. And as you said, we've also had a number of people who right away emailed us and said, I got the job, or could, you know, can I use you as a reference? I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for this job, and they get it because this certificate does hold some weight. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Right. So again, this is a little repetitive, but the first course with our colleague, Dr. Bildashenko, is that beautiful, deep literary dive and dive into theory for 10 weeks online. It's really comprehensive and a beautiful foundation to set you up for that, the applied community development 8-day residency. You've got 2 weeks online to do some reading and prep, and then you've got 8 days full on campus, day in, day out. And we're working with one of the cities, and then you do a 1 week online post-residency to kind of tie up your thinking and wrap it up. You get a little bit of a break, and then you come back and finish up with the Sustainable Community Development Collaboratory, where you really work your ideas and come up with recommendations and action plans for presentation and to complete the certificate. And do you want to say something?
No, I think that that's a really good explanation of the layout of the course. What I like about it in particular is if you decide to go on to get another degree, sometimes when you come back to learning as an adult, you've lost some of your security that you're capable of doing it. And I think that's why half of our first class went on, because they got the agency to be able to think, well, I can go on to a further degree if that's what I want.
You know, it's also such a real, doing real research that makes a difference. It's so satisfying for people that they say, is this graduate work? Well, I can do a graduate, you know, I can do a full graduate program. So yes, you're right. We found that was that happy surprise for most people. I mean, it doesn't lack rigor, but it lacks rigor mortis. That's for sure. That's my joke.
Well put.
Okay, next slide. Well, we needed a laugh. We were getting a bit serious. Oh, go ahead, Nancy.
Yes, that would be my turn. If you don't mind, I have a few questions in the chat. Some people have been messaging me, so I can just go back here. Some people were just asking about the 8 days on campus, the residency. Is it 9 to 5, 8 to 8? People are just curious about the schedule. And I know we can find it online, but I wonder if you have anything to add.
So usually it's 8:30 to 4:30 is what the days look like. However, because it's an intensive, there's often evening events that we've scheduled. And sometimes when you're diving into a project, there's only certain times you can meet with people. And so some of that time will go outside those class parameters. In the past, we've had bikes on campus where people could ride up to the city. So that was part of their learning. That was quite a wonderful summer. It's always in the summertime. Yeah, and we do like to do a few events in the evening, and it's full on. You're also working in teams, and so you're going to have some homework. And yeah, it's not like you're going to have all your evenings free. And it's really ambitious, and everybody comes out of it saying, "Wow, you know, I didn't think we'd pull it off," and we did. You know, it's really quite something, but it does go outside those parameters a little bit. Yeah.
Wonderful. And that leads to another question I just got about teamwork. So there is teamwork in that program.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
the Royal Roads, if I could.
Yeah.
Hilary, if you don't mind, I'll add. So the Royal Roads model is cohort based. on the basis that you can learn as much, especially because people are adults, right? You can just learn as much from your fellow students as you can from your professors. And in fact, we don't do didactic teaching. It is more a sharing and more of a Socratic dialogue process where we're in dialogue with the class.
Mhm.
And and also it has the hidden agenda of hopefully you will then develop new networks once you graduate of people that you can connect with around certain issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we usually break up into 2 or 3 teams. And what that does is allow people to, really to work with people you don't know is another kind of skill set that has to be developed. There's a lot that goes on in a very short time. And, but the teamwork is very rich. And, and it's not always perfect coming together. That's how life is. We want that experience for people, that it's not always the people you choose to work on your team. Sometimes you have to work through things and sit with people whose motivations might run counter to your own to move through to something, because that in itself is the microcosm of what we're doing with some of these pressing problems. So, it's just beautiful to watch what happens over the 8 days and how everything does come full circle, and teams are very knit in at the end. When they take a bit of a break in the summer before the 3rd course, many of them take the initiative to stay connected and start doing some of the research already. They start diving in and stay with it until their next course starts. So that's always really a good sign. But yeah, definitely rich with teamwork. Yeah.
It's
And
wonderful.
the individual is valued too. I mean, there's assignments that are individual as well as team oriented. Yeah.
And it's very, very necessary because, and if anybody tells you that they're an expert in sustainable development, sustainability, or now the most leading edge concept of regenerative sustainability, run the other way, because it's beyond any one sector, any one level of government, or any discipline to be able to solve. It demands unprecedented collaboration to be able to come up with the regenerative solutions that are necessary to get us beyond the climate crisis. And do we have the capacity? Yes.
Mhm.
Do we have the necessary skills for that collaboration? Do we work in a competitive rather than a collaborative model?
Mhm.
Yes. So therefore, that's another rationale for the cohort model.
Mhm. And when we can start to trust each other, when we really start to begin to trust each other, that each one of us brings value, every voice is important at the table, well, that starts to shift that model of the one expert in the room. That starts to allow everyone to find that they have a place in the co-creation of innovative solutions that no one person could arrive at themselves. We all come with partial knowledge. Yeah, it's quite a choreography over those 8 days of getting everyone on the same song sheet and yet coming up with unique and particular ideas and action plans. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I must say, we love that image, Hilary, that you found.
Me
It's so
too.
powerful.
Yeah. Well, that was from one of our colleagues from our regenerative sustainability thing. We love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How to apply. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in here and feel free to add any comments. And I see that there's a lot of questions being answered in the chat, which is lovely. So now that we're really excited, we love the program, we love hearing about it. So the next intake will be in March 6, 2023, so about a year from now, with the application deadline December 6. But as we like to say at Royal Roads, please don't wait. We evaluate and assign your application on a daily basis. So if today you're excited and you want to start your application, feel free to do so, and you will have until December. And I'll just walk you through how to do so. So at Royal Roads, we have standard admission, which is the completion of a 4-year or comparable undergrad degree in a related field from a recognized post-secondary institution. And that goes with normally at least 3 years of relevant full-time work experience. This is the standard. If you're thinking, oh, I don't have exactly what it needs here, this is when it becomes interesting with the flexible admissions. So this is not something that you have to pick to select when you apply. Our team in the enrollment and admission will do that for you. So they will look at your transcript, they will look at all the documents you share with us, and then they will decide if you are ready with the standard or flexible. So the flexible will be 5 years of relevant full-time work experience, significant relevant experience, and it's assessed on a case-by-case basis. And I like the note at the bottom, admission is based on the applicant's balance of work and life experience, including volunteer and community activities, practical experience, and related training. So this is not just about academic, it's really about your whole career, if I can say. Anything to add to this, Hilary or Anne?
Yeah, I just want to add that, and I think it's the next slide about the applications, the personal statements and the letters. Just, I really encourage people to tell us more. Some of those documents are very dry, or it's a recycled CV that you've got, or resume, but to really tell us, on your personal statement, why you and why now, and, what's going on for you. And then in your resume, to add in those things that may not have been paid employment, but are equally as important to your experience and to your knowledge and to your skills. So, it's a cross between, how do we ring our own bell? A lot of people are really reticent to do that. I say, tell us as much as you can, because this is all we've got. We don't know you. These have to stand for you when you're not here.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So when you're ready to go and apply to Railroads, you go to our website, and I'm sure some people can put the link. It's Railroad How to Apply. You will pay a small fee of $128 and some cents there, and then you get started by sending us all the documents. And as Hilary just mentioned, the statement, which is the third bullet here, it's very important. This is the why. This is why we should select you to be part of the program. So feel free to tell us about yourself, tell us about your past experiences. If there's anything on your transcript, maybe there's a year that didn't go well, a past session that didn't go that well, you explain just the why. We know that life happens and we're all human, so we'll be very careful with that. We also ask you to provide official transcript for any post-secondary studies that you may have. Those have to come directly from your institution, so you will share them by mail or by email. We want the resume, detailed resume. As Hilary just mentioned, please don't use something that is maybe out to date. Really, take the time to go to your resume and find out all the occasion, the opportunities, everything you have been working on for the past years that make it relevant to the program. And 2 letters of reference. And the letter of reference, what we suggest is that you use your personal statement, you create your statement, then you send it to your people that you want the letters of reference from, so they can understand better what is the program about and the why you want to get into the program. And for the letters, we always recommend 1 academic one and 1 professional. If you have any question about it, feel free to jump in the chat.
So Nance, on the personal statement, I would also say, not just, why you and why now and what you've done, but how do you see yourself?
Mm-hmm.
How are you getting a glimpse now of how you might contribute to more regenerative, sustainable community development? How are you seeing yourself already as part of something that's happening or wanting to happen, or, to say a little bit more about that, just because that's also very helpful when we're looking at files. To really hear where someone imagines they are, or where they want to be. So anyways, just more.
That makes so much sense. And I believe this is why the cohort are so diverse as well, because people will introduce and come back with all that amazing background and different experiences. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. And financial aid. Here are some links, and hopefully we can get them in the chat as well. All this information is on the website, railroads.ca, but we know that financial planning is a crucial component, and we have so many internal and external links and grants and loans to refer you to. So please feel free to connect with that team. That's very important, and they're just there just to help you. So please use them. And here, the Enrollment Services, I've seen Lisa Marie popping a lot of links in the chat. But again, if you have more questions, feel free to connect by phone or email learn.more@railroads.ca. If you're coming from abroad, please feel free to connect with the International Enrollment Advisor at learn.more.international@railroads.ca. And if you have your phone right now and you're ready to connect with one of us, just scan the little code here, the QR code, and you will be directly sent to Railroads team to ask more questions.
I just see Jerry in the chat is saying, is the academic reference imperative? It's been over 10 years since I completed my undergrad and I'm not in touch with my professors anymore. It doesn't actually have to be. You know, if you haven't got a recent or a more recent academic reference, it can be people who you've worked with in organizations who know your skill sets, who can speak to your you as a colleague, as someone that reported to them. You know, we could ask for those kinds of letters too. Is that right, Nancy?
Yes, it is, totally. And Jerry, I really like that question too, because and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that in many programs at Railroad, people have been away from school for 10, 15 years. So you won't be alone, and we will help you through getting there.
We just want letters that people can speak to who you are and to what you've done. They've accompanied you, they've witnessed you, they've been your supervisor, whatever that has been, you know, not your best friend, because obviously they'll, you know, that'll be the wonderful letter. And there's a place and a time for that, but it's not in this application. But you know, you can stretch that definitely past academia. So thanks. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I'm not sure if my colleagues, maybe Selena or Lisa, is there any question that we're missing here? I know the last one I got by email from someone that couldn't join was, what can I do with this credential itself? But I think you answered that already, but is there anything else you would like? I think I heard you saying that some people will take that graduate certificate and just go and find a job. Is that correct?
Well, that's been our experience. Anne and I have had that experience several times with our students, and it's quite exciting because they say, "Wow! Right away, I was doing this, and right away we were planning for this, and right away I used this new skill and this new knowledge and this practical experience." Anne, is there anything you want to finally say about this? Just as a
can you hear me? Because
Yep.
Can you hear me? Because I think I'm frozen. I can't click on anything and get any of the buttons to work. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay, so yes, I think I just want to touch, if I may, on regenerative sustainability. So regenerative sustainable development has a long history of evolution, and I wish I'd thought to share that timeline that I developed a little while ago. But it has morphed, and all intellectual ideas and thoughts are living, and they should be living. They shouldn't be static. So it's now that leading edge thinking now is on regenerative sustainability. And I'm really excited about this because what it does is it puts life at the heart of everything we're doing. So, and it recognizes that human well-being and environmental well-being are fundamentally linked. But it has an emphasis on net positive outcomes. A colleague and I argued a long time ago, I think in 1996, that then we had enough information, enough knowledge, and enough science to act on the climate crisis. And I always add biodiversity conservation because that's now a major human imperative, is biodiversity loss. So we will also be touching on some of the leading edge ideas involved with regenerative sustainability, as well as indeed our master's program in environmental management has now been revised to reflect this latest thinking.
And I'll just riff off that a little bit to say that we've had this knowledge for some time, and we know that knowing something isn't enough. So the way we designed this program was to engage the entire person. So it's the, we're using the beautiful rational mind. We're having people walk out and embody some of their learning. There's an emotional component when people start to reflect and start to think about their inner experiences, their memories, their beliefs, their ancestry. There's the action piece, which really, again, brings an embodied kind of metabolized way of knowing something. You don't have to memorize it because you've done it. And so this is actually how people are moved to change. It's not enough to know. And we've done a poor job of really communicating all of what we know, all of the science. So this is a wonderful combination of natural and social science coming together and in a very active, and as Anne says, way with life at the center of it. It's a really beautiful program. Of course, we love it. So, yeah.
And I think maybe one last question before, and maybe we have one more here, but I just saw a question from Lisa that she often hears. Who else is in the room? So what type of sector do the students come from or hail from?
Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm remembering correctly, we've had, politicians, we've had city planners, we've had folks working in organizations, we've had writers.
Wow.
And help me out. Who do we remember?
Municipal government.
Yep.
Yeah, municipal government employees. We even had one student who was into sustainable fashion and design.
Right.
All sort of practitioners, law enforcement. Yeah, very
military.
diverse practitioners. Yeah.
Yeah. And people wanting to go more into sustainable community development, more into the planning side. This sometimes is a taster. Yeah, for sure. And then we've got one more question. Well, it's more a comment.
I see the comment here. Yeah.
Who's really active in the chat. And I hope you'll consider joining us. It looks like you have loads of passion and knowledge. So I think that's it for us. I think that's it. People can contact us. Yeah, sure. They definitely contact me and I'll answer more questions or have a phone call with you. I'd love that. But thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Hilary. Thank you, Anne, for your time. Lisa, Selena, and everybody. And we'll send the recording, so feel free to share with colleagues and friends and prospects and let us know any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
Bye.
I think they're looking for the QR code again. Jerry's looking for the QR code.
Let me bring that up here.
Okay. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Yep. Take care. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Dr. Dale. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Leighton, and everybody in the audience for your interest.
Thank you so much.
Appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Nancy and staff. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.